Boy, it's colder than a well digger's ass out here today, I'll tell you what. But lucky for me, I got heat in the shop and she's chooching away, so I'm gonna stay nice and warm while I'm working, not freezing my ass off. Anyway, back to the Camaro. All right, I had it up on the rotisserie. Yay, looking good. I didn't turn it over. I was thinking about dressing up the welds on the bottom and cleaning up stuff, but then I was thinking, well, why should I have to turn this thing over multiple times? If I pull that off of there and put this tail panel on there, then I can dress everything up at all the same time. So let's get to doing that. And I figured the first step should be figuring out where and how I want to weld this thing up there. Along this edge here, I'm going to do a cut and butt, and then through here, there should be a series of plug welds that go all the way across, tying the outer tail panel to the floor panel, as well a couple plug welds around this license plate holder here, and then more plug welds along this bottom lip here to tie it into that inner tail panel structure all across there. So I want to go through and mark this out. But before I do, I want to make sure that I got it sitting in here the way that I like it. Here's that floor pan flange here that it should set nice and tight against. It's a little bit gappy. I don't know if you can see. There's a little bit of gap there. I want to drill another hole in the middle of it here so that I can bolt it through. Again, just like I've got these guys here. Bolted through, so bolt that up there so I can get it a little tighter. I think the reason for part of that is because this old tail panel's still in the way there. Once I do the cut and butt, I can pull that out of the way and get in there, you know what I mean? Okay, I drilled this out along that trunk floor flange, and then as well along the inner tail panel flange there, a couple holes around that license plate hole. Scuffed this up with Scotch-Brite real good. Did the same thing over in here. Got this all scuffed up good. I'm going to hit this with some wax and grease remover, and then throw a couple of coats of epoxy primer on just this area in here. I've masked it off down below along that flange that'll be welded on. I'm going to use weld through primer on there, and then as well I've got weld through primer on this flange here. I'll probably throw another coat or two of weld through on this guy, and then should be ready to weld that on there. So let's do that. Okay, got this coated with a couple coats of epoxy primer. Next, I'll mask off this edge so I don't get any weld through on that, and coat everywhere that's going to be welded in weld through primer. Same thing with this inner tail panel here. Everywhere that it's not going to be welded is coated in epoxy, and everywhere it is going to be welded will soon be coated in weld through primer. Let's get that going. Okay, I got all the weld surfaces coated in weld through primer, and let it dry overnight, and then I came back and cleaned off the weld through primer around all the plug weld holes. I've got this this area here is nice and bare to be welded. Did the same thing up in here. Test fitted up there, marked where the plug welds are going to be, and then wiped the weld through primer off of those. As well, while I had it test fit up here, I scribed a line across, and then I used a cutoff wheel and just cut notches up to that line. That should help me remove this metal whenever I do the cut and butt, get it out of my way nice and easy in small pieces instead of having one long strip there. Let's slap this baby up there and start throwing some sparks. Quick update here. I used a cutoff wheel to make it all the way through, and then used my air saw to cut that way and that way. Then I started tacking kind of as I went along, and then I'd cut a little bit more and then tack a little bit more. As I got over here, started blowing through, I was having some problems, and I think that's because of the oil in my air saw. It blows out with the exhaust and doesn't like to be welded through. So what I started doing on this side over here is I started, after I'd cut through it, I'd wire wheel it real good and get all that oil off, and my tacks turned out a lot better. I've got an overlap tack here, which I've cut up to. Once I get a couple more tacks in here, I'll throw another tack over here, and then I'll cut through that guy all the way to it, and then tack this up, and then just kind of move my way out to the edges on both sides, throwing down a tack about every inch or two. And once I get it tacked all the way across, then I'll come back and fill in those tacks. Cutting the notches really helped with removing this interior strip. Back in here, here's the back side of the welds. Looking pretty good, pretty happy with it. It's nice and even, getting it just perfectly lined up there before I weld it. Let's see if I can show you the long ways. Anyway, it's looking real good. I'm pretty happy with it. Keep on trucking. Okay, got her all tacked up here. She's looking good. Nice and smooth in between the two panels. Now I just got to come back through here, do some grinding and welding and welding and grinding and grinding and welding. And we'll have this baby slapped up there in no time. Yeah. Okay, got that joint there all cut and butt, welded up. It's looking real good. It was a real pain in the ass. It fought me. Had I known then what I know now, I probably would have just gone ahead and replaced the whole tail panel. Would have been a lot less work, I think. But, you know, that's what they say about hindsight. It's always 20/20. Good news is this area will be covered by the bumper, so nobody's ever going to see it. But I think I did a pretty good job. Like, I don't see a whole lot of problems or issues. It just looks kind of normal, I guess. I'll show you the back side of it. Back in the trunk here, I went ahead after I welded it on the outside. I came in and welded on the inside as well, just to add a little bit of strength and cover any pinholes that might be there. But anyway, it's looking pretty good. Now I can move on and do the plug welds and get those plug welds done up, and then I'll be done with this tail panel piece. Okay, plug welds are all done. They're looking spiffy. Just a little quality time with the grinder, and they'll be looking awesome. Did the ones underneath as well. Whenever I was trying to get the tail panel to match up to that floor flange, I'll show you the floor flange here. The floor flange, I had to beat this out a little bit to get it to made up with the tail panel. And whenever I had welded in here, it kind of sputtered a little bit, and I got some little BBs, weld BBs, fell down in there. And as I was squishing this together, see if I can see right here is one of those BBs. So there are a couple of them here. There's one there and a couple little tiny ones over here somewhere. But nothing I can't fix. Okay, I ground down the welds, and then I came back and did a little touch up on some of them and ground those again. Where I had those BBs popping through, for the most part I could just hammer on this a little bit and get them to push in on the inside. The really bad one there, I actually just used a cutoff wheel and cut a slit there and then just welded it up. It looks pretty good. I'm not going to worry too much about it because the bumper should cover this whole area here. But yeah, she's welded up there. Now to move on, I'm not going to bother grinding the welds on the bottom just yet. I'll go through and do a bunch of that later. But yeah, now I can move on and do something else. Like welding up the trunk latch supports here. They need to be welded to the floor. As well as I'd like to do those seat back braces up here if I can. All this bracing might be in the way, but I'd like to do those up. Get those welded in, and then I can start working on the mini tubs. Okay, got that trunk latch support all welded in. It's looking pretty good. And then I came over here and started doing the seat back braces. Welding those in there, and my welds got really shitty really quick, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, it's because I'm out of gas. Gotta go get some more gas, and then I can finish those up. I think this is a good place to end this video. I'm making progress every day that I work on this thing, and I work on it whatever I can. So yeah, I hope you like what I'm doing so far. If you got any questions, comments, feel free. I think the next video I will start cutting the floor and getting it ready for mini tubs. Yeehaw.